Hi everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's we'll be comparing the Toyota Tundra iFORCE Max to the Toyota Tacoma iFORCE Max. Really, this is just more of a comparison of the 4-cylinder iFORCE Max versus the V6 iFORCE Max to see which powertrain is better. Before we get into this video, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the Orem Toyota for giving me some time with both of these cars. Link to their website in the description down below. Link to my car buying guide. Let's get into it. Powering the Tundra is a twin-turbo 3.4-liter V6 that goes through a 10-speed. Power outputs are 437 horsepower and then 583 pound-feet of torque. Fuel economy average is 20 miles per gallon. Now, powering the Tacoma is a turbo 2.4-liter 4-cylinder hybrid that goes through an 8-speed. It puts out 326 horsepower and then 465 pound-feet of torque. Average fuel economy with this is a bit better at 23 miles per gallon. Before we move forward with this comparison, I do want to mention if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Now, the next thing that I want to show you guys is the payload capacity difference and weight difference. So this Tundra has 1,290 pounds of payload capacity. 7,630 is the gross vehicle weight rating, so this thing weighs like 6,300 pounds. So getting only 3 miles per gallon less with a bigger engine when you weigh 6,300 pounds doesn't sound too bad. Let's check out the Tacoma. Now, the Tacoma is definitely a tighter fit, so 1,200 pounds of payload, so the Tacoma barely has less payload compared to the Tundra. 6,735 is the gross vehicle weight rating, so that means this weighs about 5,500 pounds, so that is quite a bit less. I mean, you're talking about a difference of, what, 500 plus 300, 800 pounds, yeah. The Tundra weighs 800 pounds more than the Tacoma, gets 3 miles per gallon less. Now, the next thing that's very important to note is fuel tank capacity. The Tacoma has an 18.2 gallon fuel tank, whereas the Tundra has a 32.2 gallon fuel tank. And I think that actually partially explains the payload difference between the two trucks, why the payload is so close. The Tundra has so much more fuel capacity, which obviously decreases the payload because you've got more payload going to fuel, but that means that you've got so much more fuel range in the Tundra compared to the Tacoma. So with all that out of the way, let's take them out, drive them, and see which powertrain performs the best. Ooh. Let's start off in the Tundra first, and then drive the Tacoma second. See if I feel like I'm downgrading when let's just turn off the climate, when I go down to the Tacoma. So I've been looking up the fuel tank capacities of all the new Toyotas. I usually don't even look up, I should do this more because like I review cars, but I don't usually do that because most automakers it hasn't been an issue, but fuel tank capacity has been a serious issue with Toyota. I mean, I have a 250 Land Cruiser and it's super annoying. That has like a 17.9 gallon fuel tank, and so I barely get like 220, 240 for my range on a full tank of gas. Not not the best situation, but I think I'm starting to understand what Toyota was doing. You know, their new product's supposed to get better fuel economy, and I'll say if you keep it stock. And so then they're going, oh well, you still get good fuel range, but you know, like I threw on aftermarket tires and yeah, changed things quite a bit with my Land Cruiser. So, and also the cold, man, the cold really hurts hybrids. I really do like this V6 quite a bit. Now with the Tundra and the Sequoia, they actually pipe in audio, so it sounds a lot beefier and a lot more muscular than the powertrain actually is, funny enough. But either way, it's got great low-end torque, and the hybrid assist at the bottom does help out quite a bit. But in general, you just pretty much hover below 2,000 RPMs most of the time in the Tundra. It's really nice, and the 10-speed's great, right? It's a smooth transmission. And from what I've heard talking to people really haven't had issues with these, with these hybrids. It's been the non-hybrids that have had all the engine problems. So seems like you might be safe if you go hybrid. But yeah, I mean, if you're wondering in terms of Tundra, I actually like the new Tundra quite a bit. The old Tundra's got a lot of character to it. It's definitely an experience with the V8 and all that, but the new Tundra is very comfortable on road, right? That's why they did the new suspension. Great articulation off-road too. But it's just a really nice, comfortable, daily drivable pickup truck. Boy, oh boy, has it got some torque. And that's the thing about this iFORCE Max V6. Now, something to note, you're barely going to get any better fuel economy compared to the non-hybrid. I've tested out both powertrains, and what I've discovered is, just like what Toyota says, the hybrid's more for performance, for power, for low-end torque, rather than being for extra fuel economy. It does help out a little bit, but not a lot. And especially if it's cold. If it's below 60 degrees, the hybrid system really doesn't help out fuel economy at all, in my experience. It's got to be like, the sweet spot's like 60 to 80 degrees, somewhere in that range, and you get the most out of the hybrid system when it comes to added economy. But overall, with the Tundra iFORCE Max, amazing low-end torque. And even this powertrain, again, if you don't have the piped-in audio, it's still like a nice, you know, it's a V6. It's not going to be the best sound on the planet, but you know, it's better than a four-cylinder. We'll see that in just a moment. But yeah, it just drives, it just drives well. It's got great, like I said, it's got really good torque. That's the thing that's the most impressive about this powertrain. It's smooth. The hybrid fills in the power gaps low down, so this still doesn't feel quite as good, I'd say, as an NA V8, but it's probably as close as you can get with a turbo V6. So let's go see if the Tacoma's really worth getting an extra 3 miles per gallon. Lose a little bit of payload, lose a little bit of size, lose quite a bit of fuel range. I mean, 18.2 versus 32.2. So you're talking about a 14-gallon difference. And let's just say both of them, let's just say 20. I mean, this thing is, again, it says it averages 20 miles per gallon. That's so much extra range. Like, you're talking about over 200 miles of extra range that you get. And I understand that Tacoma gets better fuel economy, so but it's probably about, I bet it's about 200 miles is the difference. That's huge. That is the difference between like doing a road trip and not having to fill up at all and having to stop to fill up with fuel. That is big. So let's pop into the Tacoma. Well, Tacoma with the iFORCE Max. So right off the bat, way less torque. It is instantly noticeable just in the parking lot here. Now again, this is not a slow car by any means, you will see that, but yeah, the torque difference is substantial. Now the reason by the way, the reason I didn't compare the interiors or anything on these trucks is just simply this one's like an entry-level Tier D off-road interior, whereas that one's a Platinum. It's like they're not comparable at all when it comes to interiors. But I will say, generally speaking, if you get into like Tundra compared to Tacoma, the Tundra interior does feel like same package to same package. The Tundra feels nicer. It's a bigger truck, it makes sense. So the torque's really good. The engine just has to work harder. Again, you remember with the Tundra, I'm just hovering under 2,000 RPMs. This, it's more like, you know, under 3,000. So you got to rev it out a little bit more to get a similar outcome. And it makes sense. I mean, this is down on horsepower by over 100 less horsepower. And I mean, torque, 100 pound-feet less, more than that. So it makes sense, right? Minus 100, but then you also have 800 pounds less weight. So you think that, you know, 800 pounds less, 100 less horsepower, should feel similar, but still, I've said it a million times, there's no replacement for two things, displacement and cylinders. If you have more displacement and more cylinders, an engine's just always gonna feel brawnier, right? It's always gonna be able to just kind of get through at lower RPMs. Got a nice turbo whistle to this one. It's interesting to see the ride quality difference. The Tundra feels like full-on luxury, and it makes sense. It's a long wheelbase. That's most pickup truck, like that pickup truck's like 145. I think it's 145-inch wheelbase. I might be wrong. This is probably closer to like because the Tundra's 232 inches. This is probably like 205, 209, somewhere in that. So then the wheelbase on this is going to be probably in the 120s, I bet. I didn't look up the specs. I'm just spitballing. One of you guys can go Google it. But yeah, shorter wheelbase, so it's just not going to be as comfortable to ride. But the benefit with the Tacoma being smaller, right, a little bit easier to maneuver, better on tighter off-road trails, right? You're going to have all of that to benefit it. So something's up with this comparison. I think that after reviewing all of the new Toyota product, reviewing all the new powertrains, definitely prefer the hybrid V6 over the 4-cylinder. I think the 4-cylinder is an improvement over, in terms of power, delivery, and all that. It's better than the 3.5 V6, like, no arguments there. It's also better than the 4.0 V6 to a lesser extent, but it is still better when it comes to power delivery. But yeah, when you compare it to the big boy powertrain, yeah, it doesn't feel nearly as strong. But what I will say in closing with this is, when you look at the pricing of the Tundra compared to the Tacoma, I don't know why you'd buy the new Tacoma. Hear me out. Hear me out. So there's discounts on both of them except for, you know, Tier D Pros, right? You just don't get discounts on Tier D Pros pretty much ever. But if you look at like MSRP to MSRP, the Tundra MSRP is not that much higher. Like, if we look at Tier D Pro to Tier D Pro Tacoma is like 66, 67 MSRP. Tundra Tier D Pro is like 74. So yeah, it's more money, but then it's like for $8,000 more roughly, you're getting a, you know, $8,000. You're getting a full-size pickup truck instead of a mid-size. You're getting, like I said, over 200 miles more fuel range because you have a much bigger fuel tank, so it's way more usable that way. More comfortable ride, more luxury features, right? The Tundra just comes with more. The Tier D Pro Tacoma has ventilated seats and all that kind of stuff, but way more space in the Tundra. You just get like so much more vehicle, and it's really not that much more money. And if you look at the lower end, like, you can get a really nice base model Tundra with the Tier D off-road package for not that much more than one of these Tacomas with the Tier D off-road package. And you know what? Like, I know the non-hybrid V6 has had some issues, but you can get a Tundra with the non-hybrid V6, get probably about the same amount of fuel economy as you get in a Tacoma, because that V6 is actually pretty darn efficient. And yeah, you'd be not that much more money after discounts and everything. So I think that this shows that, yeah, the V6 obviously, I mean, we all kind of expect that better engine, but it's not that much less efficient when you look at the numbers, when you look at the weight of the vehicles. And then when you look at the vehicle it's attached to, it's like, man, you might as well, with Toyota, it seems like you might as well go full size with this generation. If they made the fuel tank bigger in these, well, you'd lose payload. So you'd go, that's why we have a 1,200 pounds payload in the new Tacomas, because you've got such a small fuel tank. If they went back up to a 24 gallon, I mean, it'd be like what? It's an extra 6 gallons of fuel that weighs like, I don't know, 50 pounds. You'd still have 1150. I think people would be okay with that. Anyways, let me know your thoughts with the powertrains, but I think the Tundra wins this comparison just as overall value, and then definitely powertrain performance and economy and everything.